What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a look at the Demko Knives Armiger 2, and I did pick up 2 of the 4 variations that they offer in this model. The first being that Sharksfoot blade, and the second being a clip point style blade. So the other 2 variations are going to have the same blade shape, they're just going to have partial serrations. I'm not super into serrations. Every once in a while I'll order a one-off, but for the most part I prefer a plain edge, and so that's what I went with, but they do offer both. Now as far as the blade shape, I didn't really spend a lot of time contemplating, should I get the clip point, should I get the shark's foot? I probably would have went with the shark's foot if I were only ordering one, but these are so budget friendly that I figured why not just order both of them. I picked them up on the Demko Knives website for $19.99 a piece. And I didn't meet the free shipping threshold, so I think I paid $11 for shipping, bringing my average price of these knives to just a hair over $25 and some change. So still super budget friendly. Now when I ordered it, from the time I ordered it to the time it arrived at my door, took exactly 7 days, which I think is pretty efficient, no problems with that. The only reason I even mention it actually is because as soon as I got this in, I realized I probably should have ordered more, and also realized that these would make excellent stocking stuffers. I know if I didn't already have this knife, I found this in my stocking, I would be stoked. And as a knife person, I would be stoked. I think they also make really great gifts for people that aren't as into knives and maybe just need something to open packages, something cool. And these are just charming and endearing, and I don't know what it is about them. I guess it's just their small size, but really like these knives. And so the reason I mentioned that shipping time is by the time this video goes live, I did rush it out, but even if you ordered the day it went live, it took the same amount of time it took me to receive mine. You'd be cutting it close. You'd get it in time, but cutting it close. And I don't think I'd take that gamble during the busiest shipping time of the year. And so I shopped around a little bit, found it on Amazon as well for a couple dollars more, but it ends up being cheaper with shipping. So depending on the blade shape and whether you go with serrations or a plain edge, it's $23 to $25 on Amazon right now, but it does qualify for free Prime shipping. So 2-day shipping, won't have to worry about it getting here in time or not if you order it early enough. And then also ends up being less than what I paid per knife on the Demko site. Now that may or may not always be the case. Also, it may not matter how quickly you get it if you're ordering this after the holidays or just ordering it for yourself, in which case I would price match and go with the one that makes the most sense. If you're going to meet the free shipping threshold anyway, probably makes more sense to order it directly from Demko since it's a couple dollars cheaper. But in my case, it wouldn't have been. It would have been cheaper to go Amazon. I just didn't shop around before ordering them. So in any event, let's get into the knife itself. The Armiger 2, the 2 in that is not referring to this being the second iteration. I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the background because it's having a problem focusing, but not referring it to being the second iteration of this particular model. It's referring to the blade length. So 2 inches on the blade length here. There is an Armiger 4 that released the same time as this did, which was pretty recently actually, I think late September, early October. And the Armiger 4 has a 4-inch blade, double the size. It's not double the price, so I think it's almost quadruple the price because it's a little bit more of a premium offering. I think they wanted to get this one as low as they can. It's just a fun backup knife. Definitely wouldn't consider this, you know, a primary EDC knife. It's a tiny little fixed blade, smaller than most of my folders. And so dimension wise, outside that blade, we have a 1.875 inch cutting edge, and so we do have a small sharpening tool at the end that's taking up a little bit of that space, but effectively a 2-inch blade here. The handles are 2.625 inches, which gives me enough real estate to get a comfortable 2-finger grip plus my thumb. I can get my 3rd finger on there, but as soon as I start cutting, I always seem to spread out and my 3rd finger falls off. And so this is 2 fingers plus my thumb, but it is very secure. You can see a very generous finger guard, which is important on a knife of this size because there's really no chance of me accidentally sliding up onto that blade. And even though it's a small knife that I can't get all my fingers onto, I feel very secure in using this. Now, again, keep in mind what this is actually intended to be used for. Don't go like batoning wood or anything with it. It's a small little backup knife, just to kind of a funner knife. 4.625 inches overall, and weight-wise, extremely lightweight, 0.78 ounces without that sheath. Of course, once we get that sheath back in here, we add about 0.7 more ounces, and you are going to be carrying it in a sheath in all likelihood. So that brings our weight up to about 1.48 ounces, still extremely lightweight. Did want to take a moment to talk about these sheaths because I really do like them quite a bit. They're Kydex and very compact. You can probably already tell that I removed the keychain from one of them, but they do come with this keychain. I didn't add that myself, and I will be removing this one after the video, only because I don't plan on carrying this as a keychain. You know, this is a tiny knife, but it's still not keychain size knife. That's a little bit large and bulky for a keychain for me, and so we'll be removing that. It would work if you were going to be putting it on like a key keeper in a bag or on the outside of your bag. It would be really nice in that capacity, and so it would make sense to leave it on there. I'll definitely keep it around, just not going to keep it installed. But without that, love everything about this sheath. It's a pocket dropper for sure, fits in your regular pocket. I was wearing a Carhartt front pocket t-shirt today. If it goes into there and you don't see any of the sheath or the handle exposed, it completely disappears into the pocket. And I can actually put both side by side in that pocket without any of it being exposed. So really, really nice. Super thin for the most part outside of the end here, so super flat, which is nice. And really good retention. You don't hear like any rattling or anything like that. The other thing that's really nice about them is that they're bi-directional, and so you can insert the knife in either direction, no problem whatsoever, and interchangeable. So all 4 models, you can use any of the sheath, no problem, flip it around. And so that's a really nice thing, especially to have that retention and no rattle with a cutout that's not the exact shape of the blade. Now the reason for that is this finger guard slides in behind these nubs here. You can see there's a nub on either side, so it slides in there, locks it in very securely. There's no chance that that's going to shake out, and you have to be very conscious to put in the effort to pull it out or it's not going to come out, which is nice. Obviously you want that security. Last thing I want to mention about this keychain, and then we'll get this one out of the way, move over to the other one, is that I do have some concern about the integrity of the Kydex right here. It's the thinnest part of any of the attachment points, and you have this here, and you might want to, you know, you're holding your keychain and you just pull on it, and that's creating a lot of shock, a lot of impact in the weakest point of that Kydex, which may eventually cause an issue. So if you do leave this on there, I would still recommend just kind of grabbing a hold of that sheath and pulling it out every time rather than relying on the keychain. And I don't think you'll have any issues with just everyday wear and tear, that breaking. I think the only way you'd have an issue is if you're pulling it out constantly, putting pressure on that spot. And so we'll get that one out of the way. We do have tons of other attachment points though. So if you want to use this as a neck knife, it works in that capacity. You can attach it to some MOLLE. You can put some paracord through here, tie it off to your belt. I believe it's also compatible with an Ulti-Clip S, but definitely double check that. And so lots of mounting options on there if you're not just going to drop it in the pocket like I've been doing. Now the steel on here is a 4034 stainless, super budget steel, but super budget knife, no problem with that. I do believe that's not the steel you get on the Armiger 4. I think you get a nice upgraded steel on the Armiger 4. The only real difference, obviously the blade shapes are different, but the only real difference between them is that we get a full flat grind on the clip point and only a partial flat on that Sharksfoot. Also worth mentioning, I haven't specified, if you're not familiar with Demko knives, you might be wondering why I keep calling this sheep's foot a shark's foot. And the reason for that is it's just kind of a tongue-in-cheek play on the sheep's foot blade. He has a lock that he designed called the Shark Lock, and so we can see that here on the AD 20.5. Kind of looks like a fin, which is where it gets its name. Super fidgety lock, a lot of fun, and on this knife, he has a sheep's foot option, which was what I went with, and he just decided to call it the shark's foot since we have the shark lock, call it the shark's foot. So just a tongue-in-cheek name, but really like the naming and like the looks of that. Actually, while I have this out here, it would be good to compare this in size to the AD 20.5. Large folder to be sure, but when you put it next to here, it seems significantly larger because it basically dwarfs these closed. And so almost identical in length to the Armiger 2 in the closed position, and then when we get it open, obviously it's just ridiculous. And so significantly larger. It's not quite double, but significantly larger than the Armiger 2. Didn't want to show it next to a normal size knife or even a small knife, and so this is a folder everyone's familiar with for the most part, the mini bug out, pretty tiny knife overall, but also dwarfs the Armiger 2. And so you can see not obviously as much bigger than that AD 20.5, but still a significant amount larger. So wanted to show that off as well. The handles on these are a thermoplastic rubber, so basically just rubber. Nice grippy texture all around. The only place that's not really textured is the bottom here, and you can see that's where it kind of seals off, but no added texture there. But we do have that texturing on the side that's pretty soft and grippy, not as dramatic as what's on the spine, which is almost feels like a jimping. That's definitely raised up a decent amount, and they're all lending to that grip very nicely. Or I think I already mentioned that lanyard hole as well, but if not, you do have that lanyard hole to extend your grip if you want to get more fingers on there, get a little bit more control, but it does feel surprisingly controlled even with this small grip. And so one thing with that lanyard hole, which I don't know how well it'll pick up on camera, but it does show the steel. This is a full tang all the way throughout, which is a nice thing, especially on such a small knife. Now you can't see any part of that tang exposed except when you look through the lanyard hole, so some people might consider that a partial tang, but it goes all the way to the end, and you can see that that hole goes right through the steel when you look through that lanyard hole. But really cool knife. Like I said, very fun, charming, endearing, whatever term you want to use for it. It's just a knife I like. I know it's not a workhorse, but I would love to receive this as a gift, and I most likely at some point will pick up more of these to give as gifts in the future because it's such a cool little knife. Kind of reminds me, I think Cold Steel has a Bowie knife that's similar size, but that one maybe even be a little bit larger. Probably will check out that at some point in the future as well. But would love to hear your thoughts on this knife down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, definitely consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting the notification button. All help out the channel a ton. And as always, I hope you have a great one. Take care.